minutes, and then we'll begin. Thank you. Thank you, Shriver. Okay, it's 9:05. I think that 5 minutes has come and passed, and I think we should begin the Utilities webinar. So good morning. My name is Jesse Barrera. One more quick check, loud and clear out there. I think you can. So just to let you know, I am the Utilities AFCAMP Manager here at AFCAC, and this webinar is the last of the Take 10 webinars that we've been hosting. And they've all been focused on the new AFCAMP risk versus cost model. The webinars were recorded and are being posted on YouTube, so a simple YouTube search of AFCAC webinars should bring them about. I was able to reach them from my private internet last night, so you shouldn't have any problems reaching them. You can refer to those webinars for general guidance on the 15-16 business rules on some of those cost-saving calculations that you're having to perform. And if you have any programming issues, look in that particular webinar for some details and guidance on how to do those. You also have the other AMP scoring methods that are posted within those webinars. Just some quick rules of engagement. There is no dial-in. All audio will be through the DCO. And post any questions that you may have in the chat box. We'll be monitoring those and try to answer as many of them as we can at the end of the DCO. This is a short agenda with concentration on running through the utility condition calculations so you can arrive at a probability of failure score. And also going to cover just some myth busting that might be out there and try and clear those up. And then, as I said, follow up with any questions that you have out there in the field. All right, so some myth busting. You may have heard that AFCAC wants you to inventory your entire base in the next 3 months. Well, simply that is not true of any of the AMPs, and much less utilities. We ask that you focus on your most critical failing infrastructure systems first. You know your systems best, and you know which ones need immediate attention and capital improvements. The second myth I want to put out there is that there is no utilities SMS, so we can't provide a condition index. Well, there is some truth to that. There is not currently a utilities SMS, but there is one coming on the horizon. And those attributes that we've identified in the current UCI algorithm will be used in the forthcoming SMS database. And you're going to use those attributes to calculate your UCIs within the algorithms that we provided. So it's easy to do. They're simple formulas. With those attributes, you should be able to easily achieve a condition index score. Third, the utilities algorithms don't cover my requirements and our database is unobtainable. The truth is that we have not addressed every single system or situation out there. We have covered what we think are going to be those requirements that are going to be competitive this year. And we will and have already worked with some of the MAJCOMs on the methodology to use to handle their particular situations. So keep the emails coming, keep the phone calls coming. We're here to help and assist you and help provide some additional guidance on some of those more challenging projects that you would like to identify. And we know this isn't a perfect model, but it is the way forward, and together, we hope to improve it based on the data we receive and some of the feedback we're getting, and may even make a better model for next fiscal year building rules, business rules. The fourth myth bust is that this is just too hard and our airmen won't get it. Well, it isn't easy, but it also isn't that difficult. Using good judgment and gathering basic information on your system and plugging it into the simple formulas we provided will generate a condition index. And we have some very smart airmen, some very smart craftsmen and tradesmen out there. If they just go through their daily routine of gathering some of this standard information and condition assessments, it shouldn't prove to be too difficult to populate those algorithms and arrive at a UCI score. Let's step back a little bit for most of y'all who may have not been introduced to this new FY15-16 model. And this isn't something that shouldn't be new to most of the MAP managers. I even started introducing this back in July during our utilities DCOs. The CAMP model is based on a risk versus savings framework. And as you should know, all SRM projects will compete on one IPL. And the risk principle is based on the probability of failure, which is largely factored on the condition of the asset. And the second factor of the risk model is the consequence of failure. It looks at the true consequence of that particular asset failing and its criticality and priority to the mission and to the MAJCOM. And the final component in this new CAMP model will be the cost savings. And in the FY15-16 IPL, the savings will account for 10 of the 210 total points. So this year, it'll kind of be used as a just a little extra credit type point system, with the primarily relying on the probability of failure and the consequence of failure. And we're going to move soon to the project worksheets, the calculation sheets that we provided. But why do we do this? We did this to help provide a tool to help you calculate your project scores. And we think these project calculations are pretty simple, but they are new, and we've been looking at them for some months now. So it's kind of more intuitive to us. But as we've gone through some data pools, it's obvious that it's not quite so intuitive to y'all. And they do require some logic, and in some case, some programming adjustments on your part. And within the utility sheets, you may need to adjust based on the particular algorithm that you select that best meets your project. The worksheets also allow you to see the same scoring that we are going to see. They will help during the adjudication process, so we can exchange the same information and arrive at the same scoring conclusions. So what's in these worksheets? And I'll bring them up in a second. But one of the sheets is just a simple cross-reference, so you can look at your condition index score that you arrived and see what the respective POF scoring will be. We've also included a single worksheet to track your MatchCom requirements. And you also have a tab for each of the amps and multiple tabs for utilities amps, depending on what particular utility system or condition you're looking at. And each one of these calculates their particular condition index a little bit differently. For instance, the facilities is using the builder, and transportation is using their paver to arrive at some condition index scores. And where can you find this information? Well, there's this web page right there that you could refer to. So use those resources that are available to you, the webinars, the web pages. Use everything that's available to you, including myself, to reach back and help you manage and arrive at these condition scores. All right, so you're about to go into your worksheets, and before you do anything, you're going to have to do some prep work. First, you have to define your requirement. You're going to have to go out and do an assessment, gather the key data that's required for scoring, including doing a direct condition rating assessment. And this pretty much follows the building definitions for arriving at a direct condition rating. And mostly you're going to use your best engineering judgment to determine what appropriate score to give it within the direct condition rating. You also know that your project scope may cross several amps, so you may need to do an overall composite type weighted average of the condition indexes and the MDIs to arrive at a project probability of failure. These are all situations that we're here to help you through. So again, keep the emails coming, keep the line of communications coming open, and we're here to help guide you through some of those situations. And once you have all these numbers, you can go to the cross-reference sheet and compare your your UCI score against the POF score. And if you even have your MatchCom priority ready, you can complete your COF calculation. And for those of you who may not know, the COF calculation is based on your MatchCom priority and the MDI. All right, I'm going to take a second here to switch to the project worksheets and kind of work through the tabs and try and do a demonstration. 1 second. So here you go. The first tab is a built infrastructure scoring chart, but simply this is the cross-reference sheet I was speaking of earlier. With any condition index for facilities or TNAP or utilities, you do a cross-reference and you can manually determine what your probability of failure score will be. And then based on the MDI and your MatchCom priority, you can arrive at a consequence of failure score. And so on, there's this cheat columns for the saving score as well. So the first sheet is more of a reference sheet to kind of cross-check and do a sanity check as you run through your calculations to see what those POF scores will be. This next tab is your MatchCom IPL worksheet that we've provided for you. Just a location for you to use if you want to load all your MatchCom projects into a single place. This tool sheet is available to you. I'm going to ignore the project titles right now. We're going to come back to those and show you where the utility tabs and how I flow them into this particular worksheet. The next tab, just a visual tool to help you populate and visually see how your projects will score out on this chart. And I've done a little sample splattering of 5 or so projects here. And the numbers refer to the MAJCOM priority number, and the size of the bubbles are supposed to be an indicator of the cost savings ratio. They may not be perfectly sized in this chart, but that's a sampling. And as you can see, there's different tabs for the different amps: facilities, pavements, natural infrastructure, and of course utilities. So you work through your utility scoring. Some of the basics, prep work you need to do is determine which particular utility am I working on, system I'm working on, and within that system, which particular algorithm do I need to use. Within each system, I provided essentially 3 different algorithms. The first one is, generally speaking, for a linear distribution system. The second algorithm takes into account components, and for the water, other valves, other mechanical features relative to that system that aren't linear, and in which you might have I have provided a estimated service life for. And the third algorithm within each utility worksheet is simply, there is no estimated service life for this particular component I'm evaluating, or this particular asset I'm evaluating. And the approach to arrive at a condition index for that type of situation is you go out and do a direct condition rating assessment using your best engineering judgment and assigning a score. So these worksheets, these tabs are here to help you calculate your condition indexes. I have not built a situational case within each worksheet, every situational case within each worksheet. So as you go through and try and determine which algorithm to plug, please review the worksheet formulas and modify as needed to accommodate that particular algorithm you're going to utilize. I just want to check the chat room, see if anything is going wrong. So I went in and pulled a couple of projects that from ACES just yesterday to kind of do a sanity check and see if I could replicate the scoring that those projects had kicked out. So the first one I pulled out was a particular project which was tied to a utility water or wastewater distribution system. Within ACES, the MDI indicated was a 70, so that's a quick, easy population within this worksheet. And looking at the remarks column field within ACES, I was able to determine what the scoring of those attributes were. So for sanitary sewer overflow, they had assigned that score of a 0. The remaining service life was assigned a score of 2, and so on. So for this particular example, I was able to replicate the same score that particular installation had arrived at. And pretty much you use the same approach, for every single utility tab. Go out and gather the data that's necessary to complete that algorithm. Here's one that I populated on one of the electrical projects that I pulled out from the system. And nothing really much different here. I just want to bring these up because I'm going to refer back to the MAJCOM IPL here in a second and you'll see how I just introduced these calculations into the MAGCON IPL to arrive at an overall of POF and COF. Okay, so you've gone through the utility tab worksheets and you've calculated what your UCI is for each one of those projects. So the first project, they had come up with a UCI of 16, which should match, yes, it matches the wastewater UCI tab. So you hand jam the 16 value into there. It automatically calculates the POF score for you. The MDI was the MDI that you assigned, and you hand jam that score in there. That's MDI of 70. It kicks out an MDI score automatically for you. I've placed a dummy priority of 1 here, just so I can run the calculation. And you can see it kicks out a consequence of failure score of 82. And a savings investment ratio of 0.5. So this MAGCON priority 1, if you go to your risk matrix, will pop up right there. Looks like if this plays out this way, it'll be a very competitive project for 15 and 16. And just to demonstrate another one, let's look at this one here. Arrive at condition index of 90. Let me see which one that one was. It's neither one of those two. One more try. Well, I want to do this one, the 44. Because this is one where I was not able to replicate the same condition index that was identified by the programmer for this particular project. That condition index, as I calculated, was a 44. And within their program, within their ACES field, they had placed a 42, or the other way around. I think I calculated a 42 and they had a 44. So there's a little difficulty in looking at the remarks and really understanding which of those scores values were assigned. But nonetheless, once we adjudicate that and we arrive at the same condition index score, the POF field will be populated. The MDI should be straightforward based on your CAT code. And the MAGCON priority was a sample priority that I had provided. So it goes through the same process and arrives at a total score of 189. And we should find this MAGCON priority 3 on the risk matrix chart right up here in the top right. You know, it scores very well based on those calculations. Oh, there you go. So that was a tutorial on using those worksheets. And really completes the tutorial and really my utilities webinar. So open to questions and see how we can answer those for you. And I'm going to go ahead and turn my speakers on. I've had them off, but I'll turn them on so I could hear some of the questions coming in. Lieutenant Colonel Meeker, can you hear me? Or Zach, can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm going to read off a couple of questions that we have come in so far, and you can answer them on your end. The first question,
all right, thank you.
Is where does the direct condition rating?
The definitions for the different scoring are provided in the business rule score sheets. Using those definitions, you will use your best engineering judgment to arrive at a score. So if you go to your business rules, and they follow the builder plus green to minus red standard definitions. So if you go to the business rules and look at the direct condition rating definitions under utilities, you try and do your best to assign the condition rating as you see it based on those definitions. Okay?
One question that came in was, how does one get a minor construction R&M project to plot on the risk matrix if MC projects only need a minor construction validation memorandum? And I'll take that one real quick, Jesse. Just because it's you have a signed memorandum, but you're still going to have a probability of failure score, which will be 100 based on the business rules as they read. And you're also going to have a COF score based on the MDI of the new asset and your MAGCOM priorities. So it will have an X and Y to plot. And it might even have an SIR if you have some sort of companion funding. Next question was, can you please clarify whether direct condition rating is required for every algorithm?
Yeah, as we said, this model isn't perfect. That allowed the installation to apply an adjustment or a little local adjustment as they see it. Some of those attributes we identified, clearly won't really give the best accurate picture of the condition. So we went ahead and incorporated that DCR element into each one of those algorithms, and we'll see how it plays out. I'm sure we'll do some fine tuning down the road in the future, and we may even add additional elements or scores, or break it down to a finer granularity to arrive at a better method for calculating the condition index.
Okay, next question. Can you go over the weighting of the elements?
Yeah, back in December timeframe, the SMEs and myself and a couple of MAGCOMs got together to try and determine what's the best algorithms to use, trying to bridge this gap between now and the ultimate day when we have a nice SMS system in place and we've standardized all the condition definitions. But we're not there yet. So between myself, the SMEs, and a few MAGCOMs, we threw out we proposed the algorithm, the attributes to use. We actually minimized them down to these particular ones you see. And then the other trade-off was, well, how are we going to weight these? And we played with different formulas. In the end, this was the final weighting average that we thought would work for this timeout. We clearly there's going to be some adjustments based on some of the data we actually that comes in. So for the time being, it's solid enough for arriving at the condition index, and I don't think we've overweighted or underweighted those particular attributes.
All right, next question. How would you rate adding water meters to projects or water meter projects?
I think this is one that's come up before, and it depends on, is this a appliance issue, a regulatory issue? Is it just a missing component? So I guess you got to factor which one it is. If it's a compliance issue, then you could probably look at the POF direct assignment of it being 100. Um, if it's a matter of just needing repairs or replacements, then you go about the normal approach of any other component and use that component algorithm. And I don't believe I have an estimated service life for meters, but if there were one, then you would use the estimated service life and the direct condition rating to arrive at a condition index for meters.
All right, there was a question. It was answered in the box, but for planning purposes, should we assume an MDI less than 70 or 80 will not be?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think so. I don't think you should make that bold assumption. There might be some really nice cost savings projects that are out there that fall, in 70 and below range. And not to mention, right now the MDI is based on the CAT code, but don't forget there is an MDI refinement process in place. So, we're considering looking at the MDIs based on some feedbacks we're getting in from you all.
All right, next question. Please tell us how we are going to know the condition of all underground utilities, since the utility is underground and we cannot tell if it's okay or not.
Yeah, that's, I get that one all the time. I can't see what I can't see. Quick thing is, if you're able to take a camera shot, fantastic. At least you could arrive at some conclusions. If there's anything obvious from the surface, you could use your best engineering judgment to make some determinations on how to populate those attributes. Or if anything, probably know the age, and I will hope you at least know that. And using maybe the age and your best engineering judgment to arrive at a direct condition rating, hopefully you'll be able to put some logic to that and come out with a UCI score. So yeah, I mean it is a challenge, but again, if it's not showing any signs of breaking or deteriorating, maybe it's not one of those projects that need to be focused on at this time. So.
Right, next question. To calculate the UCI, it asks for outages. Are we finding the outages for the year, months, etc.?
Within the business rules, it's over a 5-year period. So, use that as your guide for determining that number. There's a lot of latitude right there. I know you don't want to give too much latitude and give people an opportunity to start gaming and manipulating, but there's got to be a level of trust here and using good sound judgment. So, we're going to rely on you all to perform in that manner.
The next question is on demolition. How will it be handled? And I'll answer this one for you, Jesse. Demolition is essentially a function of the savings over our investments. So if we're investing a bunch of our resources, whether it's corrective maintenance, PM, or whatever, in an asset, over the 25-year lifespan, that would be your savings. And then on the bottom you have your investment. So if that's an SIR greater than 1, then it will be considered for potential funding. The next question is, how do you get the abbreviations like SSO or I believe it was ACN in the tab calculator?
For sanitary sewer overflow in, I'm sorry, what was the second one?
ACN.
ACN. Well, you might have me on that one. ACN.
That was guest aid, if you could clarify ACN.
All right, I'm going to have to look at that one. Look at the spreadsheet and see where that is picked up on.
As far as outages go, the info in IWIMS likely doesn't reflect only the project portion. How do we rectify?
Yeah, some of it might require going out and obtaining the additional data on your own, and if it's not in IWIMS. And again, the data isn't that difficult to obtain. You should be able to track the number of outages over 5 years quite easily, or at least make that determination if you don't have it recorded somewhere.
The broad question here, can you go over what is required for the utilities portion of the act?
Yeah, is this the final question? I give the final answer. So on the utilities AFCAMP, within the business rules, we're asking you to start considering your next set of weak or failing assets on the utility side, and start doing some assessments on those particular. So we get ready for really the FY16-17 program. So once you've done through the camp, don't stop there. I mean, it doesn't hurt at all to continue to start working your condition assessments for AMP purposes. And if you can knock off another 5 to 10, I know we say 20, fantastic. That'll make you that much closer to completing your assessments over the next few years. And the attributes aren't going to change. We may not use those same attributes in our future algorithms, but that's basic information that's good to have regardless. Over.
What are the expectations for assessment of utility assets? Are we simply supposed to use existing plan studies, etc., to determine direct condition rating?
I'm not sure how much more I can say on the direct condition rating. Using your best engineering judgment. If you can do that visually, fantastic. That's really incumbent upon you to determine where that particular score falls.
All right, and the MAGCOM worksheet, do we have to put MAGCOM priority for each project? And I'll answer that one, Jesse. It's going to be MAGCOM dependent what they're looking for. Our recommendation has been, focus your tech score like we did in the past that didn't have a MAGCOM priority. So your COF portion will basically be the MDI weighted at that 60%, and that will account for your COF score to give you a tech score. But you can certainly put in your weak priorities there, but we'd recommend you contact your MAGCOM specifically to see what they're looking for in terms of it. But bottom line is the calculator, the worksheet is just a worksheet. It's all going to depend on what you're putting in ACEs in the other cost tab there. That's what we're going to be pulling how to discover when we do the poll, and hopefully our MAGCOMs are using a similar process. The next question is, should linear segments have individual UCIs? Oh, no, I want to answer.
Should linear segments have individual UCIs?
That's the question, yes, sir.
If if those are going to come in, I would say so, but let's look at the linear segmentation rules and playbook, as we move forward and arrive at a consensus on whether or not we should be doing that. But for this particular year, if that segment is the portion of your requirement, then certainly you're going to need to assign a UCI for it.
All right. Looks like we answered this one about the COF asking for MAGCOM priorities. Next one I see down there, is there an example of savings calculations for a utility project?
Good question.
Here, I'll hit that, Jesse, too. I mean,
Yeah,
this is a function if, especially if you have any linear segmentation, it's going to be easier, but we're looking for the areas, whether it's water line, electrical, whatever, that we're constantly having to baby or having to repair leaks and keep it running. We're putting a lot of man hours in there from our shops to go out doing corrective maintenance to fix the breaks. That is dollars that those guys are not spending doing PM, testing their valves, doing all the other stuff. So definitely there's going to be savings there, because if we go replace one of those lines or segments that's been having multiple breaks, then we have costs associated with that in corrective maintenance that we shouldn't have in the future. And you're also going to have it depending on how your utilities are, and if you're purchasing water, you're going to have savings there as well in terms of losses. All right, the next one, and I missed it here. It said, did you say attributes will change in future models or will not change?
This is Lieutenant.
Yeah, and the real
answer this one.
Yeah, I see it. Good answer.
Hey, so the question is this going to change next year? And I wanted to take this chance to say, and Jesse's kind of foot stomped this throughout. Utilities was a challenge this year. Trying to pull this into an integrated one-to-N list, compare it to facilities, pavements, even natural infrastructure, where all of those other types of infrastructure assets had a sustainment management system tool where, I know we pushed a builder on y'all in a pretty fast and furious manner. It was kind of tough, but once you get in there, it makes it pretty simple, and it produces a pretty clean result. Utilities wasn't so clean. So Jesse, I think, in partnership with the MAGCOM utilities engineers, did a pretty darn good job of pulling this together into something usable. Last year, we had 6 utilities projects above the line in the IPL. And hopefully this year, utilities will be a little bit better represented using this model. And you guys, you're already asking, how do we track breaks? And IWIMS isn't that clean? And how do we do condition ratings? And we understand that. We understand those are challenges. And I can tell you that the biggest change for FY16-17 will come in the form of how we treat utilities. We're already working on it. Across AFCAC, across Ops and P&I, we have 2 test MAGCOMs in PACAF and ACC, and we're working on a more deliberate, data-driven, linear segmentation-based approach to prioritizing the assets and creating asset visibility. Someone asked about the AMP. We're hoping to actually finish the next set of business rules for FY16-17 in June, right? So you guys have 6 or 9 months to get working on this, and not 6 or 9 weeks like we gave you this year. So will the attributes change next year? Will the utilities part of this change next year? Absolutely. I hope so. And it's going to change based on all the feedback you've given us and on tests that we run with MAGCOMs and bases. So I wanted to say that up front. We know this isn't as clean as it could be, and we're working on it for y'all.
That's all we got right here, Jesse. If you want to make a call for any.
Okay. Any last questions? Otherwise, I want to thank you for waking up this morning and listening in on this webinar. Again, just gonna foot stomp that the lines of communications will stay open. So send me emails. I know I've been trying to respond to those that have been coming in. or call me, and we'll try and talk through this and come up with the best approach, and then share those solutions, across the commands. So that's all for this morning. This will be repeated again at 1600 Central Time, and have a good rest of the day. Thank you.